Welcome back to Tools of Fighter Pilots, the show where the cockpit meets the real world. I am TC, and today we are pulling G's in a different way, through meaning. We are talking with Tamara Miles, researcher and co-author on meaningful work, to dive into the 3 C's that drive deep engagement and purpose in life and work: community, contribution, and challenge. And we will connect those with 5 non-negotiables tools forged in the cockpit, principles that every fighter pilot lives by, and show how they transfer into leadership, sport, and life. Let's get after it. Tamara, welcome to the show. I'm really thrilled to have you on board of this mission. Tamara, I know about you a bit from the book that I read, Meaningful Work, where effectively you and Wes, by being at a master in positive psychology, you decided to do some research and then decided to write a book. So this is what I know about you, but please tell us in 100 words who Tamara Miles is.
100 words. All right.
You can be short, you can be longer. It doesn't really.
First of all, I think first and foremost, I'm a mom. I have 3 teenage kids, and so I think that's the most important thing in my life. But I'm also a professor of leadership at Boston College and an instructor of positive psychology at the University of Pennsylvania. And I am a leadership trainer, keynote speaker, author, and a researcher. How's that?
Yeah.
Maybe 100 words.
Yeah, and it sounds really a busy life. By reading your book, one thing that impressed me was the fact that it was full of research and studies. There were numbers, there were metrics. So I'm really excited to go on with this conversation because, as a fighter pilot, you're always connected to reality. You're not having an holistic approach, let's say, to things. So, sometimes by talking about meaningful work, we think about something more holistic than structured. But today, we are talking about something that you identified in your book that is really crucial, which is the 3 C's: community, contribution, and challenge, which are essential to building blocks of purpose-driven work. Let's start there. Why do these 3 matter so much?
Yeah, and I think that's a great place to start because our hope was to make this concept of meaningful work, right? That people are a little fuzzy about or they think it's the same as purpose. We wanted to make it really practical and really actionable. So I'll start by defining what we mean when we say meaningful work, right? And people think meaning and purpose are the same thing, and actually they're different. Purpose is a part of meaningful work, but it's not the whole story. And what we find in the research is that meaningful work can be found in every job, every day, in moments that matter. Meaningful work is less about what you do and more about how you experience what you do. And so in our research, 3 components emerged as critical for making work meaningful. And those are the 3 C's that you mentioned. It's community, contribution, and challenge. And so our definition of meaningful work is work that provides a sense of community, that allows us to contribute to something that matters, and that challenges us to learn, grow, and develop. So I'll pause here and I can go into the 3 C's more.
That's great because I wrote an article to the request of some of my students. Were like, how can you always be motivated? You are an officer and now you are away from flying. And I said, I went through this. So I had purpose because I wanted to be a fighter pilot. But at that point, I wasn't able to understand what was going on because there was no community or contribution. I was just doing courses in Rome. So I wasn't really flying. So I approach also these 3 C's, and I wasn't finding them in my organization. So let's go ahead.
Let's dive in. Yeah, so community is about the people we do it with, right? Because we spend more waking hours working than doing anything else. And the connections we make really matter for our experience of work as meaningful. And so community is about feeling that we belong, feeling like we have real relationships with at least some of the people we work with, and feeling that we can be who we really are and share what we really think. And so community, excuse me, community says, I matter here. I, as an individual, I'm seen, I'm heard, I'm noticed, I matter. Contribution is about understanding how what we do matters here. And so contribution is about understanding the impact that we have on our colleagues, on our customers, on the mission of the organization. And contribution is where purpose lives, right? Sometimes we're drawn to the purpose or the mission of the organization that we join, but we don't understand how what we do every day, the emails we send and the spreadsheets we put together. Sometimes it's hard to see the connection between what we're doing and the impact it's having. And so when others in the organization, when colleagues and leaders, when they help us see that impact through highlighting our contributions, we like to say that that contribution activates purpose, right? Because purpose is really great for us, but we need to feel it, not just theoretically believe it. And so contribution says, what I do matters here. And challenge is about our fundamental human need to keep learning and mastering new skills and growing. And so challenge is about being given opportunities to learn, to grow, to tackle challenging assignments, to have people who believe in us and in our potential and highlight our strengths. And so challenge says my growth and development matters here. So it's I matter here, what I do matters here, and my growth and development matters here.
I would like a little bit of help here to do an exercise to see the three C's through the fighter pilot's lenses. I've written, and I have identified 5 pilots non-negotiables, which are principles that each fighter pilot should live with, and they are also. I found out that they're also applicable to life, to business, and to sport. And these are: first, be on time; second, be prepared; third, structure and checklist; fourth, assertive communication; and 5, control the controllable. And while I was thinking about this, the words that you just said about the 3 C's stood out to my mind, because I feel like community, in the moment that I, like I said before, I didn't have it, effectively is something that it's built on trust, right? So
Absolutely.
For fighter pilots, the bond that holds the formation, it's about being on time, because if I'm the leader of the formation and I don't show up on time, what kind of respect do I have towards my wingman? So this community is built, by time, okay, and is also built with structure and checklist, because having SOPs allow us to speak the same language, right? Mm-hmm. Have you experienced, let's say, can you expand a little bit on time and let's say structure and checklist? Because I remember there were so many examples on the books of organization that they didn't have these things here.
Yeah. I agree completely. And that's one of the things that we uncovered, the importance of trust for the feeling of community, right? Because if you think about it, as a fighter pilot or at work, we're solving problems together. We're doing hard things together. And we need to rely on each other and trust the people we work with, that they're going to respect us, not steal our ideas, not take credit for our work, but also that they're going to show up at their best. They're going to respect our time and all. So trust is really kind of like the oil that keeps the gears turning in community. And we talk about trust, like scientifically, trust is broken into 3 components, which is reliability, credibility, and benevolence, or the idea of service or helpful behaviors. And so what you're describing there, showing up on time, that's basic stuff. It's like reliability. Can people rely on you? Are you going to do what you said you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, right? Credibility is about being the best you can be in your realm of influence, of interest, of expertise. So am I learning and developing, and am I giving opinions that are based on facts and science and things like that? And then benevolence is about um, being interested in the interest of the group. Am I helping you achieve your goals? Am I there for you? Am I caring about what you're going through and things like that? And those three factors really kind of build trust over time. And I think they overlay a lot to these 5 elements that you described. And to zoom into having checklists and SOPs, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it creates a common language, right? Like what you do is so critical, and mistakes can have like life or death consequences, right?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
so, right. And so it's a way to build trust, to have those checklists, know that everybody's operating from the same place with the same checklist and that everybody's checking that. I think that's really critical. And maybe in an organization that might not be working at such a high stakes such a high stakes situation, the equivalent of a checklist might be something else, might be team norms or how do we show up at a meeting and things like that. But those are super important.
Mhm. And they are also the guide for contribution. Once you have a certain pattern to follow, then your contribution to the organization, to the team, is much better. I think also in
Exactly.
contribution, one that is one of the principles that is really applicable is the assertive communication, because that allows not only the team player but the leaders to clarify what's happening there. And so, if I give an instruction and do this in the air, okay, fly on this vector, right? And I use the wrong words, the wrong, let's say, structure of the radio call, then I don't have any contribution for you into the game, right?
Exactly.
I think challenge is the one that, as you said, it's the conclusion of the 3 C's, but I think it's a loop, and I've seen it, and I seen every day that it's really expressed by delegation. We did the last episode with Jason, who is a fighter pilot, with Jim Cook as well, where if you challenge your wingman, then you have them right away into the community and contributing to the community, right?
100%. And I guess that highlights a point that I didn't make, which is the 3 C's aren't siloed. They're really connected to each other and they're a cycle. And so some of the practices that build challenge, like you said, you're like trusting your wingman and give, of course, they then all of a sudden they not only feel like you believe in them and their potential and you're giving them this opportunity, but they also feel like they belong, that they're a part of the team, that they're trusted, right? And so it's really reciprocal, the relationship between the 3 C's. And, you know, in our study, so many of the really inspiring stories that we heard were about challenge, were about having somebody who saw something in you before you even realized it yourself, right? Like a leader who said, you know, you're ready for this. Like you're so good at XYZ. Like, why don't you tackle this new thing? And often the people were like surprised. They're like, oh, why did they choose me? And what happens when somebody believes in you so much like that and they're giving you these opportunities is you want to prove them right. And so you tend to be super motivated to work harder, to find the right resources and tackle the right challenges so that you can rise to that level of expectation.
Yeah, that's true. That's I was reminding myself a story in 2000 when I joined my squadron. We were all young wingmen, and there were like few leading officers, and they were like, "Okay, now you get qualified as per leader, so you can take another wingman and go."
Mm.
And we were like, "Yeah, but just finish my qualification. Yeah, you go, you're good. You need to go because that's your task." And I'm pretty sure you're gonna do it. That there was never the doubt. So by
Hmm.
delegating, by challenging the young, I call them the young guns, but who are everywhere. In any organization, in sport as well. Sometimes I have athletes that they doubt a little bit themselves. You're like, challenge yourself. You're gonna make it because you have the metrics, okay? And then we will see, okay? And then we will
Yeah.
debrief, right?
Yeah. I mean, we all have those voices in our heads that aren't always helpful. The voices that say, like, oh, maybe you're not good enough, or maybe you're not ready yet, or those voices sometimes that keep us from doing the things we want to do. And then when somebody who we respect and admire, can come to us and say, you're ready. Like, I see potential in you. Like, this will be hard, but I know you can do it. I mean, that really fuels our motivation.
Yeah. I'd like to talk a little bit about myself now. Uh, this is a bit personal because sooner or later I will be involved in a transition process. I'm already in this transition, but let's say I will have to look for purpose beyond performance because sooner or later I will have to hang the helmet, and that will be it for me for flying. And I can already see that it's going to be a struggle. So the mission changes, but the need for purpose doesn't, because otherwise, how can you be as a human active into the organization where you're going to be? I'm not going to retire and be on pension. So what role do the three C's play in navigating identity and transition? Because I think in the book you have seen so many people that transition from one organization to the other, and they had to reinvent themselves in some way. They had to create new purpose in the new organization where they went to work.
Yeah, that's a great question because transitions are really hard for us as humans, right? Any kind of transition, from one role to another, from working full time to retiring, even to like back to school. Right now in the US, it's fall time and the kids just went back to school, and it's a time of transition. And transitions are hard because they break our routines, the things that give us meaning day to day. Like we wake up, we do a certain thing, and then and we go through, the motions. And there's some are rituals, some are just routines, but they keep us grounded. When transitions hit and they upend our routine, and we have to be a lot more intentional about building in those rituals, building in those connections, building in the things that matter so that we don't lose sight of our purpose, of our community. And I think that the three C's play a key role here because these are critical elements for the human experience in general. Of course, we looked at them through the lens of work and how can we get that at work. But if you're transitioning into a different role or a different company, or even retiring, and transitioning to like not working full time, whatever the transition is, you have to make it an intentional effort to harness those three C's in your life. So, how are you going to build community? Whether that is with a new community at work, with your new team, how you're going to get to know them, what shared experiences are you going to have with them? What is going to be your new sense of contribution? What is going to be your new purpose? How are you going to be making an impact on something outside yourself, bigger than yourself? And then with challenge, how are you going to keep from stagnating? What things are you going to learn about, even if it's outside of, the area of expertise that you have now? What other things are you going to learn about? How are you going to challenge yourself to stay fresh?
True. I don't want to spoil your book because it's really an amazing book and it's having pretty good success. I've seen some good reports, a good post about it. So, but the stories of the companies there were great. Can you talk about at least one, maybe without making names, where you realized and how you helped and how people realized that the three C's were working for them and everything changed?
Yeah, I mean, we tried really hard to include as many stories as we could from as many different industries as we could so that people can see these practices in action, right? Because the practices we uncovered are pretty common sense, but they're not common practice. It takes a lot of intention to make them habitual, to incorporate these practices in the day to day. And so, one example that I'll give that I think has just been truly impactful is a global accounting firm that we worked with. We were teaching them these practices of making work meaningful. We were doing a series of leadership development trainings for a cohort of leaders. And when we were teaching the practice of contribution, how to activate contribution, one of the practices is to give positive feedback to people, to say, hey, Tommaso, thank you so much for putting in the extra time to complete that report. Because of you, the client had exactly what they needed, and they, met their objectives, and we couldn't have done it without you. So something like that, a simple, real, specific, positive feedback has incredible impact on our sense of contribution, that feeling like what I do matters. And it's completely underutilized. There's a study that shows that one thank you once a week from a manager is enough to cut burnout and disengagement in half. But less than 40% of people feel like they're recognized, as often as they want to. And so it's a huge leverage area for us to get better. And so we were teaching that to the firm and the leaders in the firm. And one of the leaders decided that she was going to put a reminder on her calendar for every Friday afternoon to send 5 specific gratitude emails to her team. And so during the week, she was keeping track of who did what, who excelled, who did something really well. And then on Friday, she would just send, 5 notes with specific actions, not just, hey, thanks so much for the great work this week, but like, hey, because you did this, or I noticed how you did that, and just get specific. And that kind of unlocked a ripple effect, a chain reaction with her team, because the people who received the gratitude email were so touched that they were like, oh my God, thank you so much for thanking me. So it became this like, thank you for the thank you. But also they started then thanking their team members. They started thanking each other. They started looking for the good. They were looking for the good every week and highlighting those. And it created a real upward spiral in that team.
For my friends and my colleagues that are listening to the show right now, I'm gonna put this one in my pocket, and tomorrow maybe I'm gonna look weird, but because imagine, military education, military structure is all vertical. So this thing here, probably it's also the consequence of the way you are and the way you grow up, but also consequence of the master in positive psychology, which is effectively pushing people to be, humanize, let's say, organizations much more than just saying, okay, do this, do that, and then that's the KPI. And right. I think he talked about KPIs a lot as well in some context, and then was like illuminating. Sometimes it's not about the KPI, it's about the community and the contribution that you're giving. Maybe it's just a little, maybe it's just a small contribution, but still.
Yeah. I mean, so I'll say, we should all be focusing on the 3 C's, right? And trying to make everybody's experience a little more meaningful because it's the right thing to do. But that's maybe a naive view, because we're also busy and we have KPIs and we have quotas to reach. True, and we have goals. And so the great news is that making work more meaningful, the experience of meaningful work, is not only great for individuals, right? We feel more fulfilled, we are more engaged, we are happier at work. We're also more likely to experience more meaning in life and to be happier with our families when we experience work as meaningful. So there's a lot of individual benefits. But there's also a lot of organizational benefits. We see increases in productivity, in engagement, in retention, even in stock prices when people are more, feel more meaning at work, are more fulfilled at work. And so for leaders who are like, yeah, that's nice, but I don't have time to do that, actually, this should be your biggest focus. It's going upstream, focusing on this experience at work and making it more meaningful. And all the downstream effects that you are so focused on are gonna happen, are gonna take care of themselves.
That's amazing. There was an aspect you were treating in the book, which was the misalignment. And when the team member is misaligned, is not aligned, and purpose and meaning, they find that difficulties. Now what happens if the leader is misaligned and you were recommending, okay, make their life easier, right?
I mean,
help others to become aligned and make their workplace meaningful.
yes, that was one of our biggest findings. And in the book, we actually put it in as a foundational practice. Even we put it outside the 3 C's as the foundational practice. Before you do anything else, you have to have alignment between words and deeds. You have to walk the talk. And so leaders who say one thing and say, here in this organization, we value respect, right? But then you're not respectful. You don't show up on time for your team and you're not respectful. It is the biggest meaning destroyer, the biggest killer of meaning that we found. And it's really hard to recover. And so being a positive role model of the espoused values in your organization is critical. So if you're saying you have the 5 principles, right? If you say, all right, these are the 5 principles, but you're not following the principles, that is terrible. Yeah, you have to be the first one. Yeah.
Yes. It's like Matrix. Everything is falling down in bits and pieces.
Exactly.
For the listeners that have listened so far, you need to hit the subscribe button and like and share it, because this is a great episode. And also you're going to find down the link of Meaningful Work, where you can buy the book, which is available around the world. I got it here in the Middle East, so it's available. Tamara, just a few words to close it up. If you had to write a 1-line mission brief for Meaningful Work, what would it be?
I would say leaders have the opportunity and responsibility to make work more meaningful for everyone.
That's great. Takeaway is clear. Building community, deliver contribution, embrace challenge people in a positive way. This is, that's great. Tamara, thank you for joining us. It was really amazing to talk to you. Really appreciated your time.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me. This was a delightful conversation.
Yes, that's it for this flight. If you find value here, once again, share, debrief it, and apply it. And be sharp, stay ahead. MTC, this is Tools of Fighter Pilots. Thank you.